Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Inside LSU Baseball. I am your host, Jason Armstrong, and the Tigers just wrapped up a 5 game and 7 day stretch where they went undefeated, went 5-0, learned some really good lessons, and I think we all learned a good bit about this team. Um, some of the games were were, were really good games against some really good competition, and I think they all kind of brought something out of the this LSU team that we're going to learn from, that they're going to learn from, and I'm going to tell you, we are closer than you think to SEC play, which everything you're doing now is to get you ready for conference play. That's the reason Jay scheduled these teams that they're playing right now. Everything from an RPI perspective to just testing yourselves, getting on the road, and it's going to be here before we know it. So, what we're going to do tonight is just kind of recap really briefly. By now, you're aware of the storylines. You probably watched the games just like I did, rewatched them like I did, and so you're aware of that. But I'm just going to kind of go through very quickly some of the turning points in the game, kind of what the story of the game was to me, and just look at this weekend and what did we learn about this LSU team. Also, D1 Baseball just released their new top 25 today, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Um, but let's start with the first game of the weekend. So again, this is coming after a Monday night win, a pretty dominant win over Nichols, and then the Wednesday night win over a very game Dallas Baptist team. I think they got the victory 5-3. So you go into Frisco Friday night, and one of the first things that kind of hit me Friday is it's gonna take a lot of arms to complete this weekend to get you know play 5 games, depending on if you bat last or run rule, close to 45 innings in 7 days. You're not really built for that. A baseball team is built to play 3 games on a weekend, and maybe a Tuesday midweek game. Now, if you get in a regional play, of course it's a little different, but to play that many games, and keep in mind that that stretch that started Monday with Nichols, that was following a weekend series. So that's a lot of games in a short period of time. And so I do think that it was good for these pitchers, good for Jay to kind of see who he could depend on. And a lot of guys came through it good. Some didn't do so well. So, but let's look at this game against Kansas State. So the story, well, the way that this game, uh, it was a huge game. First of all, this is a very game Kansas State team that had just gone 3-0 the weekend before at one of these preseason tournaments. Can't think of it, but they beat Arkansas, beat TCU, beat one other team. It's escaping my mind right now. But this is a team playing well, and I said leading up to this tournament that they were going to throw Jacob Frost, who's a very good lefty that really shut Arkansas down. And he was good. I mean, he was very good. And him and Cade Anderson, both lefties, had a pretty good duel going. I mean, these are two good pitchers. And Cade Anderson was great. I mean, for 5 innings, he dealt with a really tight strike zone. It was it was interesting hearing the guys doing the broadcast. I would go from hearing the LSU broadcast to listening to Ben McDonald and whoever was doing it with him, but they kept talking about the robo ump, how they could see with the TrackMan, if it was a strike or a ball. And I mean, it must have been 5 times where they called the pitch a ball that was actually a strike. So Cade Anderson was dealing with a really tight zone, but he went into the 6th inning with LSU leading 2-0, and up to that point, he had 9 or 10 strikeouts. I mean, he wasn't his best, um, but he was good, and he fought through a little adversity without giving up a run. And so he gets LSU all the way to the 6th inning, and very similar to the Dallas Baptist game, you give up back-to-back home runs, one to the Texas transfer, D. Kennedy, and then the Holy Cross boy Dardar, and so you got a two to two game, and at that point, that's when LSU pulls Kate Anderson. So that was obviously the longest outing of the year for him, and that's what these pitchers need. They need to be stretched out. Um, and because up until this point, you're just trying to get your guys used to extending themselves, throwing 60 pitches, and most of the times they're pulled out of these early, their first, second start of the year. They're pulled out when they could go further. Uh, Could he have gone another inning here? I don't know, but after the two home runs and just kind of the way things were going, I think it was the right call to pull Anderson at that point. So you bring in Maverick Rizzi in the sixth inning, and it's a 2-2 game. And I, Rizzi gives up a single. He gets a strikeout. Then I think he uh, maybe they walked somebody, and then he winds up getting out of that inning and keeps it at 2-2. All right, so you're going into the seventh inning, and this is when LSU basically, took the lead. You have a Danny Dickinson following a Jared Jones intentional walk, hits a three-run home run to right field, and the Tigers are off and running. They got a 5-2 lead. Um, the fans are behind them. The place was kind of crazy, so that was fun to see. So you got a 5-2 lead, and you go back, and so now you're talking about you're in the bottom of the seventh inning, and Kansas State loads the bases on Maverick Rizzi. You get like I think they got two hits and a walk, and you bring in DJ Primo, and I don't know why, but I texted somebody. I said I have a feeling he's going to hit somebody. For whatever reason, DJ Primo he likes to come inside against those righties, and that was a big spot for DJ Primo. I mean, you're talking about a 5-3 game with the bases loaded, or maybe it was it 5-2 or 5-3? Maybe it was a 5-2 game, 5-2 game, and Primo comes in, throws one pitch, hits a guy, throws another pitch, hits another guy. So you're talking about 5-4, just like that, just like that. They bring in Connor Bench, who's been up until this point really like the go-to arm in relief for Nate Yeski, and he gives up a single. So you got a tie ball game right there. And then Connor Bench gets out the inning. So you're going into the eighth now with a 5-5 game. You don't get much out of the offense. You go back out and you pretty much shut them down. And so you're going into the ninth inning now, and this is um, where Kason Evans comes in the game. And the first inning was not the first inning. Kason Evans throws two innings. First inning wasn't perfect. Uh, I think he gets a strikeout, gives up a single, and this is a play that it was about as unbelievable. I mean, the execution of this play. Uh, you get D. Kennedy led off. So then you got Dardar again. Guy killed us the all game. Hits a double to left center field. And Josh Pearson gets to the ball. A beautiful relay to Stephen Milam. Milam throws a seed into Luis Hernandez. They tag the guy out at home. So that was game right there. That game was over if it wasn't for that perfect defensive play. The next batter, it took Danny Dickinson having to make a great play, or that run scores and the game's over. So two wonderful defensive plays to save the game in the ninth inning. Tenth inning, you go out there and you get some runners on, and this is when um, Josh Pearson, who up until this point hasn't been playing, and I just love to see it. I think, what did Pearson go this game? I want to say it was this the game that he goes four for? Oh no, this is the game he just got the hit to put us in the lead. It was the next game that he went crazy. but gives us the lead right there. You go up 6-5. You tack on some more runs after Danny Dickinson kind of hits a weak ground ball. They had the shift on, and so it goes to the hole. So you go up 8-5. Bottom of the 10th, you come out, and Case and Evans basically slams the door on them. They don't get any runs that inning. So you take the win 8-5. The story of the game for me was the defense. And this is by far the best defense I've seen in a Jay Johnson team. Each year, the team has got a little better defensively, with 2022 being the worst year. Each year, it's gotten a little better and a little better. This year, this defense is really a strength of one of the strengths of this team. And those two plays in the bottom of the ninth inning to stay in the fight and to get you to the 10th inning to where you could pull a win out was just amazing. And it was really the story of the game to me. So, game one, you go up, you win the first game against Kansas State, good opponent, and now you've got Nebraska. And Nebraska is a team that was ranked. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, um, they actually went to Lafayette and lost the series there. But this is a capable team, a very experienced team, and you know, right off the bat, you fall behind and you get down 5-0. I mean, I don't think Anthony Ianson, and coming in, there was a lot of talk, especially after Connor Ware had the performance that he had against Dallas Baptist. And a lot of the talk was, hey, if any of these guys falter, you know, does Connor Ware slip into one of those rotation spots? Well, Anthony Ianson could not have started any worse. I mean, he comes out the gate in the first inning, double, single, um, single, gets a strikeout, gets a ground out, and then another single. He gives up 4 hits in the first inning, and thank God that Jared Jones, they cut off the ball and threw behind the runner at first after he had an RBI single. Run scored, but you at least get out the inning. But I mean, you haven't even blinked yet, and you're down. You know what? 3-0 in the first inning, so you don't really get much going offensively. And second inning, he comes out and it's not much better. You go base on balls, and then he throws a wild pitch. He's throwing that split finger, I think it was. That, and this happened his last start too, where it's a good pitch, but he struggles at time landing it, and it's a hard pitch to block. I know that Kate Aaron Beatty got you know, a lot of the blame for some of these, but they were wild pitches, um, and so he throws a wild pitch. Runner goes first to third. Then you have an RBI ground out, so it's 4-0. 4-0. Tigers don't get anything. Third inning comes out and they score what, 2 more runs in the third inning. He goes single, fly out, wild pitch with runners advancing all over the place. Another single, and it's 5-0. So you're down 5-0 in this game in the third inning. That's the bad news. The good news is what Anthony Ianson did from this point on. Uh, because it was quite remarkable, and I don't know that I can tell you I understand completely what happened. How do you go from everything you're throwing getting shelled to all of a sudden, they really can't do anything with you? So we'll get back to Einstein on that. I've got a little bit of an idea, but it's still pretty puzzling. So the fourth inning, you start fighting a little bit. All right. And this is like the Josh Pearson game where he goes, what was it? This is the game that he goes 4 for 5. I mean, he led off 2 innings with doubles and 1 inning single. Like, he was just out of his mind. Great to see this from Pearson. Came in hitting in the 200s, averages all the way up in the mid 300s now. Good for him. But that fourth inning, he leads off with a double when you're down 5-0. Then you have Milam hits a double. So you're on the board. 5-1. Aaron Beatty grounds RBI ground outs, 5-2, and then Stanfield also had a good game, really had a good weekend. He singled, so you're back in the game. It's 5-3, and like I mentioned, uh, after that end of the third inning, when Nebraska got its fifth run, from right there, Anthony Ianson retired 11 of the next 12 batters faced all the way through the sixth inning. And that was a real key to this game because as we saw in the third game against Sam Houston, this bullpen was running on fumes. If Anthony Ianson doesn't get you those next three scoreless innings, I don't know how this game turns out. So, you hang around till the basically the seventh inning. You go into the seventh inning down 5-4, and this is where you have a big inning. You score 6 runs on 6 hits. You're up 10-5. LSU winds up holding on to win the game 11-5, and that was the key to me. And this is the thing. This is going to happen in SEC play where you are going to get roughed up. You're going to have some adversity. And like Jay Johnson always says, it's a matter of like, hey, can you hold them to 2 in that inning where they load the bases rather than 5? Okay. Can you minimize damage? He wasn't minimizing any damage for the first few innings, but he did give you some length. I think one of the things he started doing is he started throwing his fastball. I had a college coach that my best pitch was a breaking ball. I could throw it 3-0. It was just I went to college because of my breaking ball, playing baseball. And every now and then I would get so in love with it, I'd get carried away, and my coach would yell, "Believe in your fastball." And it would remind me sometimes, I was so confident in my breaking ball, but I only threw like 87 miles an hour. And so this is back in, 99, 2000. So before everybody started throwing 95 miles per hour. But anyway, and I think that Einstein is such a good curveball, that big breaking ball, that sometimes he will abandon his fastball and maybe not believe in it. So as the game went on, I saw him having more conviction in it. And he also started mixing some of his pitches. The split finger was working a little better, but he started throwing a harder breaking ball, which I've talked about before. uh, these guys who have this big slow curveball, you can fool a hitter and they can still get a bat on it. It's good to have that slider, the harder breaking ball at times that looks like a fastball, it breaks out the zone, and you can get some whiffs with it. But Ianton's stat line was not good. 6 innings, 5 earned runs. Um, but again, he gave you 6 innings. So first 2 days, your starting pitcher gave you 6 innings. If I'm remembering correctly, let me double check that because I want to say Kate Anderson gave you 5 1/3. So okay, so that's not quite as much length as you want, but Ianson did give you 6, so that's good. So, but that was the story of the game for me, was the comeback. So LSU goes from game one, a real tight fought game. Game two, they've got to come back. So you learn a lot from those types of things. And then game three was against Sam Houston. This was an ugly game. It's a real ugly game. I mean, you get out to a 9-2 lead on Sam Houston, behind a couple of home runs from Ethan Fry, as well as Monster Milam. So get out to a big lead, and before you know it, you're in the sixth inning, and it's 11-8. And Chase Shores, I don't expect Chase Shores to be, you know, perfect right now because it is a big deal to work back from what he is working back from. I was a little bit surprised though to see Sam Houston, who's not a great offensive team right now, muster 7 hits in 5 innings. And it was kind of odd because, you've got a guy throwing 96, 97. It can get up to 98 sometimes with run. He's got a very good slider at times. Um, so you might ask yourself, well, how does a team like this hitting Chase Shores, a guy with this good of stuff. And I'd have to believe that when you have a lead that big, the last thing you want to do is get out there and nibble and start nibbling around and walking guys. And he did have 3 walks, and he might. I don't know if he hit a batter or not, but he did have a couple of walks. Um, but I think he was just saying, "Hey, hit me," and you can do that with a big lead. So I'm not discouraged. I'm not losing faith, but I do think when you look overall at the starting pitching this weekend, it wasn't ideal because you're looking at this going, "Hey, not too long from now, it's March 2nd, March 14th, I think it is. You start conference play, and so you by next weekend, you want everybody to really start clicking, going into Missouri. That's a good team to play first weekend where you can really get healthy. They're just not a good team. But again, the other story of the Sam Houston game was just that the pitching. You just started running out of gas, and you bring in Cade Woods to start the 6th inning, and he doesn't record an out, gives up 4 earned runs. I really hate that for him because you got a lot of guys trying to carve up a role on this team. Cooper Williams comes in. I mean, he just struggled again with his line doesn't look terrible. I mean, he recorded 2 outs, walked the guy, but he just didn't look comfortable, so they yanked him. And that's the second straight outing for him. And we need Cooper Williams to be good because he's talented, but he's a lefty, and you don't have many lefties on this team. So you go back to Old Faithful, Connor Binge, who's just been really good for you. He did walk a couple of guys, but didn't give up any runs. And then DJ Primo, I was very encouraged by DJ Primo, and I really liked how in that game because that's a tight game. I think when Primo comes in the game, it's 11-8, and he comes in the game and pitched an inning that was he didn't give up any runs, he didn't give up any walks, so that was very encouraging. This is when you now get to the ninth inning, the last inning. You got Maverick Rizzi coming in, and it started to rain a little bit. And I know that the conditions aren't great, but Rizzi just really struggled finding the zone. 2 walks, faced 3 guys, walked 2 of them, and hopefully he can get back on track. I'd like to see him work a little faster. It seems like it's really his last 2 outings. It's really been a grind to get outs, to throw strikes. Seems like every strike, every at bat goes deep into the count, and we need Rizzy to kind of get back in it. And then Jaden Newt comes in and actually closes the deal out. So I think he even might have got the save, if I'm not wrong, because the tying run was on deck. They had 2 runners on, and Jaden Newt came in and really had some good stuff. I mean, under those conditions, I think the last pitch he threw to get the strikeout was a really nice something with a lot of sink. So that was good to see. Um, but yeah, so story that game was just you're holding on. You get out to a big league and it's holding on. The pitching wasn't promising. You got 10 walks in that game, um, 19 walks over the weekend, and that's it kind of flipped because the first weekend of the season, really first couple weeks, it's like, man, the offense, what's going on with the offense, especially that second week. But the pitching's elite. The pitching's incredible. We got all these arms, and then after this weekend, you step up in competition, and it's like, man, this offense is really good, really good. But I think we're starting to see that circle of trust that Jay has is shrinking. Um, it caught my attention that Jacob Myers, he didn't throw a pitch the entire week in 5 games. Um, his last outing, he just had a hard time finding the strike zone. And I think there's times when Jay's like, look, I need somebody to throw strikes. And with a couple of the outings you had this weekend, whether it was, you know, Williams or whoever, I don't want to single anybody out, but you know, you're 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 getting down to where there's not many more opportunities where if you come in and you can't find the zone, it might be a while before you see the mound again. So hopefully these guys can bounce back and get back on it. But the pitching right now, I'm not concerned or anything like that, but it wasn't great. And I think one thing we see is we really miss Gavin Guidry. Gavin Guidry is an integral part of this team. And if you just look at this weekend, Gavin Guidry's good for 4 innings. He could throw two one game, two another game, and when you're every out matters at the end of a 5 game stretch. I mean, not having Gavin Guidry was we felt that this weekend. I think he's going to be a big boost because again, I said this earlier, but like you're trying to build your team for a 3 game series for weekend SEC play. All right, and between the 3 starters, Connor Ware, um, Zach Cowan, Kason Evans, William Schmidt, you know, Gavin, like you might not have 12, 15 guys that you could put in a big spot, but you've got enough. And so that's the thing I come away with this weekend going, man, that you know, maybe the staff isn't as deep as we thought against lesser competition, but at the same time, do you really need that many pitchers? I mean, that was kind of an abnormal situation. But one thing you can't argue with is the offense, and it's so odd that just after the Omaha series that anybody was even questioning or doubting this offense because I don't know how you deal with this offense. The amount of guys in this lineup that are producing, this isn't a you got 2 big superstars and maybe one other guy hits. I mean, on the weekend, if I'm just looking at these numbers, I mean, Derek Courier was 5 for 12 with 5 bases on balls. Jared Jones 6 for 15. Danny Dickinson 5 for 13, 6 RBIs, 2 hit by pitches. You know, um, Milam 6 for 15, 4 RBIs. I was at a home run. Josh Pearson 6 for 9, 3 bases on balls and a hit by pitch. Chris Stanfield had a great weekend, not just defensively, but also at the plate. That was big. We need Chris Stanfield because he's not just a good defensive player, guy who's great on the base. He's like a little spark plug, whether it's going first to third on a bad throw or, whatever it is. He's just a great weapon to have on offense, and he's got so much experience. And I love seeing him in the lineup. So he had a very good weekend. So you just have all these guys right now that are producing for LSU, and just looking at just up through 12 games, just some stats. I mean, Derek Carrell's leading the team 432, Jared Jones 409. I mean, he's hitting 400 with 12 bases on balls. Carrell's got 13 bases on balls. So Danny Dickinson's hitting 366, leading the team in RBIs with what what is it like 21 RBIs. Stephen Milam is one of the best players in the country. Not only is he hitting 362 right now with a couple of home runs, but he is so good at shortstop. That play that they made where Dickinson went in the hole towards second base, flipped it to Milam is probably the best defense play I've ever seen in my life. I mean, Stephen Milam is really just great player, and he's having a great year, coming off of a great end of last year. Jake Brown 355, Stanfield 343. I mean, and that's not counting. I mean, all the Ethan Fry hitting 350, 2 home runs on the year. Josh Pearson. You've got all of these guys contributing. You've got basically 2 positions right now that haven't been great, and that's going to be third base. The offensive production from the third baseman right now with Michael Braswell hitting 179 and even Tanner Reeves hitting 214. Third base is usually a position where you see a power hitting, third baseman. But on the flip side, what I will tell you is that this is not really a team uh, that needs, another guy to be great offensively. And I think what Michael Braswell gives you at third base defensively is very valuable. It's not every day that you have a former shortstop playing third base. And so look, I think he's going to be better than 179. He got a hit in the last game of the series, which was promising. I think that's just a mental thing. Once you get some confidence rolling, that'll be good. The other position that hasn't been providing a lot of offense is catcher. I thought that Luis Hernandez looked really bad game one against K State. He was 0 for 5, and he just didn't look good. Whether it was filing out to the first baseman or pop ups or whatever it was, he didn't look very good. Aaron Beatty started game two. And then Luis Hernandez came back game three and had probably his best game of the year. He went 3 for 5, and he needed that. Because the guy can hit. And so that was really good seeing him. The other stat that stood out to me over the weekend, Ashton Larson had 2 at bats. He was 0 for 2 with 2 strikeouts. Um, so hopefully Larson can get back in a groove. I mean, he's going to get opportunities, but the way that Pearson and Jake Brown and Curriell and Stanfield are hitting the ball right now, you know, you got to get something going here because that's not something that you want to continue just slumping, especially if you're part of that outfield because it's a crowded outfield, very talented. So the weekend you went 41 for 116, hit 353 as a team. I think 11 doubles, 3 home runs, a triple. So the offense was great. The defense was great. The pitching wasn't great, but there was some promising outings, and that's something that I think you just keep building on, and you're going to get better and better. But I like where this team is right now, and with Missouri coming up very soon, I think you're going to be able to start conference fast, and then it is a grind because if you've looked at the teams that LSU has in conference this year, yeah, I mean, conference is always tough. But outside of opening weekend at Missouri, I don't think that there's a series I look at and go, yeah, there's no way you can lose that. I mean, you go to Texas, you got Mississippi State, who's kind of fighting it right now. Then you go to Oklahoma. I mean, they're undefeated still, I think. Go to Auburn. Look at the way they're swinging the bat. And by the way, I mean, Sam Dutton just was, I think, one of the pitchers of the week in the SEC. I mean, Friday night guy, he's pitching incredible this year. Then you got Alabama. I mean, that's another team that's killing the ball. Tennessee, A&M, Arkansas. Like this is a serious this SEC is really turning out to be very strong. Um, and so basically what you've got going into the Missouri series, you're going to have a couple more um, non-conference games that you should win. You've got North Dakota State coming up Tuesday and Wednesday. They actually played Bama pretty tough, and North Dakota State's played one of the toughest schedules in the country. I was looking them up earlier, and between the guys that they've played, I mean, I don't know how they were going to win a game. And then you've got um, North Alabama, who I watched the entire game against Tennessee, and this is a scrappy team. This is another one. They played Auburn tough. They played Tennessee tough. They just played a UAB team who's very good and threatening the top 25. So a couple of opponents that won't be scared of you, that are going to be game, but of course you should beat them. And then that's going to take you into a last midweek game against Xavier, another good team. And then you've got Missouri. So that's what you got. It's going to be here before we know it, and it's going to be off and running with conference play. So D1 baseball just released their top 25 this morning, and I think that most people who watch college baseball would have assumed that Tennessee was going to be the number 1 team in the country. Um, and if I'm being honest, if you ask me who looks like the number 1 team in the country right now, I would probably say Tennessee, just for the simple fact that against the teams that they've played, very similar to LSU, they played a couple of tough teams. They've just been dominant. They've been very dominant pitching. They've been very dominant the offense. Uh, they look like the most complete team. With that said, I would much rather, by the way, not to bury the lead, LSU is the number 1 team by now, you know this. So they're the number 1 team in the country by DWin baseball. I would much rather have the games that LSU has been having of losing a game early where you were down 5-0, you clawed back in the last inning. You've played tough games against Dallas Baptist. You've played, had to hold off Kansas State in extra innings. You had to come from behind against Nebraska. All these games are really developing character. We're learning a lot about this team. I would much rather that than go out there and just beat everybody's brains. And now, look, there's nothing wrong with being dominant. Tennessee's an incredibly good team. Um, but at the same time, I think that this is going to prove valuable. And look, it doesn't matter what you're ranked now. It doesn't matter what you look like. Things change when you start getting into the tougher competition against SEC caliber competition. And so you don't want to be dominant and peaking early on. I mean, last year LSU was, I think, 16-1 at one point, and then they went 3-12 to start conference. So um, but overall, this team, I'm really happy about this team. I think that this team is continuing to find the arms at the bullpen that they feel comfortable with. I think that's going to keep on for these next, 5 games or so before we get to Missouri. I like the way that they continue to running guys out there who maybe weren't great the outing before, giving them another chance, seeing what they've got. The lineup seems to really be settling in. Now, you do kind of have some matchups, whether it's facing a lefty going to Ethan Fry at DH over, you know, a Pearson or a Larson against a right-handed pitch. Maybe some of that stuff, but I think that we're starting to see with Curriell and um, Stanfield. And I mean, I do think Pearson should be locked in, but then again, you got Jake Brown, so I don't know what you do about that. But for the most part, the lineup's locked in. Catcher and third base is still something you're looking for somebody to step up. But yeah, feel really good about this team. You're 11-1 through 12 games, and you're progressing. So that's going to do it for this episode of Inside LSU Baseball. As always, I really appreciate y'all taking the time and tuning in. And we will be back here soon, um, maybe after these midweek games against North Dakota State. So thanks for joining me. Talk to you soon.